Well, first of all, I'd like to say to both of you how incredibly impressed I am with what you've done. Because really, you've got the kind of best of both worlds here. You've scripted what you've said in lots of detail with lots and lots of relevant points all the way through, but also you've spoken it, which is kind of a really great example of a different way of delivering material. So well done. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to feed back to you on this, because this is the first time that I've tried to give feedback on a spoken sort of narrative like this, but here goes anyway. Jolanta, your visual games, which I know you're very keen on, that all comes over very well. I like the fact that you explained that it appeals to lots of different senses and lots of different characteristics, and there can be an element of competition, and it does put the onus on the students to take some sort of ownership for their own learning. So that's all very good stuff. A very detailed justification for it is what you have actually provided. If I whiz on a little bit, Abbi, your section about private studies and how useful private work is quite unusual for someone to take that as a resource, actually, or a strategy, but you have a really good rationale for using it, really. And I think that some of the disadvantages that you mention, they're not serious disadvantages, really. And we do have a slight tendency, I think, to go for kind of group activities all the time. And there is a place, isn't there, for the student working on their own from time to time. We don't want to neglect that too much. So I'm going to wind on again to 231. And here we're looking at role play. Again, a very nice rationale, pros and cons, for an activity which is really very important, frequently useful, but has its pros and cons, as you quite rightly point out. I'm very impressed by the next section. I'm beginning to think I could have done this without showing the video on my screen, really. But anyway, this is an incredibly good section on motivation, because you've really kind of summarized almost everything we've learned on the course so far, and more. Actually, I noticed you did mention some things which we haven't done, like breaking down the learning material into bite-sized chunks. That's a really good idea. In other words, that's the opposite of that. That's doing the trees before people understand the size of the wood, really. It's doing it that way around, isn't it? Looking at the individual trees rather than just getting lost in the wood or the forest as a whole. So really excellent. Overall, an excellent piece of work that you've produced here. Both the way you've used your iPad, the way you've scripted it in such detail, and the sheer amount of detail and insight into the teaching process that you have brought. So thank you very much for persevering with this. I hope it might inspire you to use these sorts of methods yourselves anyway with some of your learners. Thank you very much.